from the 38-yard line, 2nd and 10. Sargent to throw again. He's been busy. He's got pressure on him. A flag on the play. And oh, is he hit at the 30? It's picked up. The race is on. This is Mark Arneson. Mark Arneson taking it in for the touchdown.
Now we're going to see if it was the quarterback that was blown dead because they...
Mark was drafted for the 1972 NFL draft. He was a second-round pick of the St. Louis Cardinals. He began the first year, he began as a backup, but very quickly became the starting middle linebacker. One day when I was sitting in the offensive lineman's room for the Dallas Cowboys, we were getting ready to play the Cardinals. They were, I believe, 7-0 at the time.
If the Cardinals are for real, they can prove it today, for their opponents are the down and desperate Dallas Cowboys.
When I was sitting in that meeting room, Coach Landry, the Dallas Cowboy coach, came in and sat down, and it was just he and I sitting there, and he said how good the Cardinals were doing, and he said, and by the way, he said, your brother Mark is playing linebacker as good as anybody in the league right now. So that was quite an honor, I think, just to hear that.
So it's a battle of two teams in new roles. The St. Louis Cardinals trying to convince that they belong with the cream at the top, while the Dallas Cowboys try desperately to prove they're not welcome mats yet. The Cardinals and the Cowboys in the NFL Game of the Week.
And the quarterback from the huddle, he looked up, he goes, well, look at this. We have a brother act going on here. We need to figure out how we can have Mark and Jim hitting each other. Quickly, everybody dives on the ball. I'm in the middle of the pile. I got my hands on the ball, but there's somebody else with their hands kind of inside of mine, and it was Mark. And I said to him, give me the ball, and he said, no. And I said, Mom said that you should give me the ball. And he says, no, she didn't. And of course, she didn't. I was kidding, and the referee blows the whistle and gives it to St. Louis, which was appropriate.
Number 57, Mark Arneson, plays outside linebacker, a position that demands intelligence, toughness, and above all, a nose for the football.
Mark was an exceptional player, and that comes from the way you go at it mentally, and then of course he had the speed and the strength to get things done when he went up against guys. Mark was certainly a warrior.
He was a prayer warrior as well. He loved to pray. Always had a faith desire. Let's pray about it. Let's see what the Lord wants to do. Let's wait to see what God was doing.
He loved Jesus, and he wanted to tell everybody about it.
Going to ask that we bow our heads in prayer.
1973, Billy Graham had an evangelistic crusade at the old Checker Dome in St. Louis. And in most crusades, Tuesdays was Athletes' Night. And on Sunday, they had a nationally televised game against the Denver Broncos.
Both defenses were warming up with the pass in mind last Sunday, and from the start, Jim Hart continued Denver's backpedaling practice.
It was an interesting game for Dad. The Broncos put a guy to block him and try to keep Dad from running down the field. And when Dad tells his story, he said it was some weenie defensive back. Dad said the ball would snap, he'd quickly throw the guy down and run down, and he made almost every tackle. Dad was having a great game, but the guy, the weenie that was assigned to him, was having a terrible game, and he was getting more and more frustrated. Close to the end, Dad threw down the defensive back. He's running down the field, and all of a sudden, the defensive back ran and punches Dad right in the neck. So Dad forgets about the ball carrier, turns around, and starts punching and beating this guy up, getting him to the ground. Flag, he's ejected. He's ejected from the game, kicked out for fighting. So he goes to the sidelines. He's sitting there with all of his emotions. Then he sees Roger Worley, and he goes, hey, Arnie, aren't you supposed to share your faith about what Jesus Christ means to you at the Billy Graham Crusade on Tuesday?
And he just felt horrible that, that had happened. Oh no, I've got to speak to Billy Graham, and look what I just did.
Drunk. He doesn't charge him with immorality, though he was immoral. He doesn't charge him with sacrilege, though he was profane. But he charged him with this: the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose all thy ways thou hast not glorified.
He's nervous. Billy Graham's right next to him. He had to share his testimony, but you know what he did? He apologized. He said, you know what? I got in a fight, and that's wrong. I shouldn't do that. He then went on about and said he's a sinner. And he, a football player, of course, he needs Jesus Christ. He doesn't have it all figured out.
Just showed the commitment that Mark had to being a Christian, a warrior for Jesus. He was. I'm very proud to say that I'm Mark Arneson's little brother.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're right with God. You've got to prove it by bearing fruit. You've got to prove it by bearing fruit. What kind of fruit? The fruit of the Spirit. Love and joy and peace and gentleness and long-suffering. All those fruits of the Spirit. They are to characterize the true believer in Jesus Christ. By their fruits ye shall know them, said Jesus. By their fruits ye shall know them.